This is the area of Grant where the street goes from 3 lanes in each direction down to 2 lanes in each direction, and you could imagine that creates quite a bottleneck. Widening Grant westward all the way to Oracle is a big part of this plan. There are 51 different projects in the Regional Transportation Plan altogether, but they all depend on you being willing to vote for a half-cent sales tax to pay for it. Transportation planners often call a main road an artery, and Grant can be one clogged artery. The Regional Transportation Plan calls for making Grant a 6-lane road from Swan to Oracle. The biggest part of the plan, $164 million of a $2.1 billion program. But leaders of the Campbell-Grant Neighborhood Association worry widening Grant will tear up their neighborhood as workers tear down homes and businesses. To make room for 3 lanes of pavement each way.
It's not about how do we make life better for the people who will be near those cars. They haven't even begun to think about that. It's, get them out of the way, and then we'll make it better.
The Transportation Authority held plenty of sessions to hear what the public wants in a plan. Tucson's transportation director says he'll work to help Grant carry more cars and still minimize the effect on the neighborhood.
I would ask everyone a little patience. We are going to be communicating with them directly with respect to the process that will follow.
It does hinge on voters approving a half-cent sales tax, and voters do have a history of rejecting transportation plans for this area. The organizers do hope the regional approach will convince voters to approve the plan this time. Back to you.
It will revolutionize our transit system. It'll fix our roadway system with things that where they're 20 years behind the times, and we'll really make a plan that works well for everybody throughout the region. We're using a process that was really open to public input. We made 14 major changes in the plan after hearing from the public. Incredible plan that really works for everybody.
And Mr. O'Day, is this the right plan?
The big concern with this plan is since all the projects, with the exception of projects like Grant Road, are out on the periphery of Tucson, and these are projects that are going to fuel sprawl, and that's really what this plan is about. It's a tax on your average citizen to subsidize the sprawl from the developers. And that's going to lead to a lot more growth in Tucson, which is going to cause more congestion in the long run as well.
On May 16th, you can tell Pima County where to go. You can say yes to new bus pullouts and safety improvements at hundreds of intersections. Yes! We need a better bus system with longer hours and more frequent service. Yes! And we need safer roads. Yes! On May 16th, you can tell Pima County where to go and say yes to 2 important questions. Yes! Vote yes. For Pima County, it's the best way to go.
First, the election results tonight. With 74% of the votes counted, questions 1 and 2 seem to be sailing through. There's a 60-40 count on question 1, 58-42 count on question 2. Looks like the RTA plan is going to get that green light. Of course, this being such a hotly debated issue, we do have team coverage you can count on.
Wow! It's another one. It's another one of those. It truly was a significant expression by the public.
First, let's start with Jim Becker and more on the transportation plan. Jim?
Well, Chris, considering how many transportation plans over the past few decades have gone down in defeat, it might seem surprising that this one would pass. But on closer examination, it's not so surprising. This plan has had backing from a very, very wide spectrum.
Our fact pattern here takes as a matter of fact that the RTA was rigged. That's our fact pattern. Our fact pattern is they rigged it using a computer. Okay. That's an important matter. And it couldn't be dealing with anything more important than our democracy.
My name's Bill Risner. I'm a lawyer, and I've been a lawyer for 40 years.
Tell the judge your name, sir.
Chuck Huckleberry.
And your employment is what, sir?
With Pima County.
You're the county administrator, is that your title?
That's correct.
An important thing to us was that we knew that our election department blatantly lied to us about a key ability to audit what was going on. And so as part of this checking up on the accuracy of elections, we wanted to ask for a whole bunch of documents. And Jim March knew what to ask for. He knew what to ask for in terms of the audit logs, in terms of the database, and we asked for that information. It was clearly public record that we were entitled to.
You understand that this lawsuit, Pima County, or the Pima County Democratic Party, is seeking the MDB files, in other words, the database from the county election computer.
Yes.
Has the Pima County Board of Supervisors had any role in the decision not to give the database to the Democratic Party?
No.
We claimed that the data from elections, that's how they counted the ballots, so forth, were public records. And that after the election, we wanted those public records. And the Board of Supervisors refused. And it was, the refusal to me was stunning, because we had at the organization, you're talking about the timeline here, at the organizational meeting of the Pima County Democratic Party, this is where there's like 300 elected precinct committee people. This is the party. They passed a resolution saying Sharon Bronson, Ramon Valadez, Richard Elias, 3 elected Democrats, cooperate with your party because we want the data and don't make us sue you.
Right.
They would not talk to us or respond to us or have anything to do with it. They permitted Chuck Huckleberry to make all the decisions.
Now, for those who don't know, Chuck Huckleberry.
He's the county administrator that works for the supervisors. And they have the duty under law.
We have like 40 speaker cards that have been sent in for this item. And it's very unusual for us to hear speakers on an issue related to an executive session.
Let me ask you this. Do you have yourself an understanding of the components of this database that would endanger future elections?
No, I do not.
You made the decision nonetheless, did you not?
I made the decision based on technical recommendations from information technology staff and experts that indicated that releasing this particular database or information could in fact cause future elections to potentially be at jeopardy, yes.
This was a recommendation from John Moffitt, is that correct?
It was a recommendation from Dr. Moffitt, yes.
The election department is one department that you directly supervise, is that right?
Yes.
And you personally have selected Brad Nelson to be the election director in Pima County?
Yes.
Are you aware that the Democratic Party obtained at one time certain public records, including an audit log of the county election computer?
Did you immediately think that there may be some problems, or was it not until this kind of evidence came forward that you really believed that there's a problem?
Well, I believe there was a problem personally when I looked at the audit log for the RTA and saw that on May 11th, 33 seconds after the computer operator opened the election, he backed up and erased the data 4 hours of counting beforehand. And when I asked him why he did that, he could not offer an explanation. So that was extremely big piece of evidence for me.
I'm not aware of the specific information. I know that they received, I believe, a great deal of information that may have been part of what was given to them, yes.
In the lawsuit that we filed to get the database, at the beginning of the lawsuit, I took the deposition of our election director,
Brad Nelson.
Brad Nelson. I asked him about the computer system and security. Brad says, you know, I don't know anything about computers. He said at one time...
He said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said at one time I had rudimentary knowledge, but I don't even have that now. You can't ask me technical questions. I rely on Brian Crane. So I take Brian Crane's deposition. I ask him about security. Are you aware of security defects in the current GEMS software?
Objection form.
When it comes to the GEMS software, at this time, I can't recall any software security issues.
You're saying that this was a relatively simple thing to do.
It's so simple that it's extremely scary to know that I could take a database, get a key ring, stick it in the computer, okay? Then I could just drag over a copy of that database, put it in my ring, take it home, stick it in my computer, open it up, change a whole bunch of things, put it back in, and the audit log or nothing will detect that it was done.
During testing, it was discovered that the GEMS software exhibits fundamental security flaws that make definitive validation of data impossible due to the ease of data and log manipulation from outside the GEMS software itself.
And then below that, there's 2 points. The last paragraph, would you read that last paragraph, sir?
The basis of the investigation is that there are log entries that point to tampering, but it is far easier to remove evidence of tampering from the logs than to actually tamper with the vote totals in the Microsoft Access database that the GEMS software uses. So it does not follow that someone with the knowledge to manipulate the GEMS data would neglect to alter the log file to remove the evidence of manipulation.
So in other words, sir, would you agree that they say that they found evidence that would point to tampering, but because this software is so easy to manipulate, they don't think that a computer operator would be stupid enough to leave the evidence they found or inept enough? That's what they're saying, isn't it?
If you tell GEMS to back up on top of another backup file, GEMS puts up an error message and says, are you sure you want to do that? Because you're about to clobber another file. Yeah. And you have to override that error message and say, yes, that's what I want to do. Then, after you tell GEMS that you want to override its error message, Windows comes up and says, are you sure you want to do that? Because you're about to clobber another file. And you have to override that error message. So this is not a slip of a finger.
My view of it is that they indicate that you can find log entries, and that if in fact you were intent on tampering, the first thing you would do is not leave log entries. Therefore, because there were log entries, it's probably simply an error or just simply something that was done in the tabulation process that was either inadvertent or a mistake.
Would you agree, sir, if you're using a system in Pima County to count things as important as votes, and you're using a system that has fundamental flaws where it's easy to manipulate the data outside of the GEM software, in other words, in the database? Do you agree with me that that's what they're saying?
I don't even know if that's right. When you say outside of the system,
It's a software, sir.
Well, if you had me read the paragraph outside the GEM software itself.
Right.
Outside the software means external to the machine or external connections to the machine that may manipulate the software.
You think that's what it means? Mr. Huckleberry?
I don't know what it means. I would assume that's what it means. I don't know if it says manipulate the software. I don't think it does. I think it says from outside the software.
Yeah, like the database. In December of 2006, after the last general election, on behalf of the Democratic Party, we made a public records request of the Pima County Board of Supervisors, where we asked for election data and public records so we could find out what was going on. The Board of Supervisors was not helpful.
So what I'm going to do, if I could beg everybody's indulgence, is I'd like to hear 4 or 5 speakers here and then get about our business. Not in any attempt to squelch communication or discussion amongst the board, but it is unusual for us.
Are you more aware of security problems with the GEM software now than you were years ago?
Bill, I'm going to object and ask you how this line of questioning will lead to any evidence that's pertinent to having access to the records that you've asked for in this case?
You can make your record if you want, but I'm not, I don't believe I'm required to answer that.
We can get the judge to answer that.
Excuse me?
I said we can certainly get the judge to answer that.
Well, you ask him that question if you think the judge can answer it. But clearly, we're concerned about security matters relating to the system. That's the whole point of why we've been concerned about the summary reports. The Democratic Party, my clients have spent months dealing with security issues.
They're not supposed to print summary reports. No one is supposed to know before the end of Election Day what was happening in any of the races. So these were illegally printed.
Are you aware that a report was then later sent directly to you that informed you and the Board of Supervisors that Brand Crane had been printing summary reports during elections before the polls closed?
I don't recall directly the report being sent to me, but I do know that's one of the allegations, yes.
On day 1, okay, October, the Secretary of State runs her logic and accuracy test. She's done by 9:26 a.m. and then they go ahead by 2:24. They're done running ballots for the day. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat. You're only supposed to run and print a cards cast report. Cards cast tells you that they ran so many ballots, but it doesn't give you any races at all. They did. 6,137 votes already counted. 8 days out now, okay? You know, people know how much a usual poll is for the whole state of Arizona? You gotta poll somebody, maybe 800 to 1,000 people.
But I knew that he ran a summary report because my door and Brad's door are side by side, and oftentimes he would walk out of the computer room and just come and give Brad a report. Everything is counting right. I ran a summary report.
Everything what?
Everything is counting correctly because he had run a summary report.
And that would be prior to the polls closing, is that correct?
Yes.
We know that in the 2006 primary, on Saturday before the election, they printed a summary report. Again, this was before the implementation of the hand count audit law. They printed a summary report on Saturday, and a few hours later that afternoon, a bunch of robocalls, computer calls of voters, started up condemning Ted Downing in his primary race. The robocalls supposedly were put out by the Republican Party of Arizona. The local Republican Party of Pima County didn't know anything about it, denied all connections to it, and there was no Republican entered in the primary or in the general election to run against the winner of that Democratic primary.
Being the appointed authority and head of elections, Brad Nelson or any director could come in and monitor the report and the system on what we were doing. Basically, yes, he could. He's appointed authority.
If you printed that report, how long would you have it in your possession?
Just till we, or till I verified that the count was correct.
And how long did that take?
Seconds.
And then what did you do with it?
If it was printed, I shredded it. And if it wasn't, if it was a preview, I closed the screen.
He would take one of the unaudited, unauthorized, unaudited reports, and we'll say we're at this point, and it's mainly to just see where we're at and how things were going.
And would he take one of those reports with him and leave the computer room?
Yes.
And would he take it back to his office?
Most of the time you'd see him go to the office.
The Democratic Party has voiced outrage over this yes vote by Ted Downing. Downing's vote hit seniors especially hard. The Democratic Party in our state has been against Ted Downing's vote, targeting the most vulnerable Arizonans. If the Democratic Party is against Ted Downing's vote, should we oppose Ted Downing? This call was paid for by the Arizona Republican Party.
They were very careful with the way they worded the message, and yet it sounded like the Democratic Party wanted to dump Ted Downing. Now, Ted Downing had just finished achieving a tremendous success by getting the Republicans in the legislature to vote unanimously to pass SB 1557 requiring hand count audits.
Are you able, looking at the Jim's logs, to determine who printed off summary reports?
By looking at the Jim's audit log?
Yes.
No.
Is there any other log or any other thing within that computer that would let you know who printed off summary reports?
No.
Okay. Do you agree that that's a security problem?
It can be.
And how could it be a problem?
The logging in.
Because people could print off reports and you wouldn't know who did it, right?
At this point, I apologize for the interruption, but let me ask you, Mr. Risner, how is this related to your access to the summary audit reports that are in the election boxes with the ballot reports?
Well, let me tell you that, Mr. Dinker,
once you knew that allegation, have you at any time asked for an internal investigation of the activities of the election department?
No. I assume that it would be appropriate to leave that public comment period open till the end of this month, and then synthesize all of the information, make recommendations additionally to the board at another public meeting, obviously, which everyone's invited to provide their input once again.
And I certainly appreciate all the people who showed up here, and though I have limited those speakers to 5 this morning, I would ask you all to please participate in that extended comment period that we have. Submit your written comments, please. We want to hear from you. I think we need to hear from you.
Later, we went further into the process and found out that election data would be taken home, and it could easily be changed and easily be manipulated to change the outcome of the election. Did you discuss with Brad Nelson that Brian Crane was taking home CD backups of elections?
Yes.
And you know approximately when that conversation with Mr. Nelson occurred?
Yes, it was after he came into the office as elections director in 2002. I don't remember the exact date or month, but it was after.
And when you brought that to the attention of Mr. Nelson, did you express any concerns about that activity to him?
I expressed my concerns to him that what if something happened to the discs? What if there was a fire in his home that night? It was county property, and I felt that he shouldn't be taking it home.
You think that after 1979, after a fireproof safe is sitting in the election department, that it would be correct for an election employee who's running the computer to take a CD disc home with them of election data instead of putting it in the fireproof safe?
I don't think he did that.
Yeah. Would that be appropriate if he had done that?
I don't think he did it.
Yeah. Why don't you think he did it?
Because what I understood is probably he took the office documents, which is the word processing, the accounting, the time recording, because he is in fact the information technology officer for that department, which has more responsibilities than just simply running the tabulating computer for elections.
Okay. Did you learn that the backup data for the office information was on tapes, like a little cassette tape?
That's what I've heard, yes.
Yeah. And did you learn that the election computer has a CD burner and that the backup information on the election computer is on CDs?
I don't know. I mean, CD, tape, I don't have any idea.
Do you have any knowledge about whether Brian Crane would take home with him CD discs of backup election data during the election?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do you know what he did?
He would show me the CD, and when I would look at them, he would say, I am taking these CDs home in case there's a fire or we lose the building for a backup.
Well, let me ask you this. Did Brian Crane tell you what he was taking home and why?
He would say,
he's an employee.
Not hearsay, this is a party statement, therefore the objections are ruled. You may answer.
it was a backup of the system. And that's what he would say.
Have you learned what the risk would be with an election employee taking home the CD backup of an election?
I don't know that the employee took home the CD backup of the election.
The question was, what would the risk be if that had occurred? Are you aware of what the risk would be?
No.
do need election reform. I think in doing that, we also need to assure that we've got the security that we need to make sure every vote is counted and counted correctly. So I thank you all for being here today, and I think Supervisor Carroll has something to say.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Carroll.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't part of any discussion at the break, but you're going to limit the speakers to 5? Is that?
That's correct.
That's the chair's prerogative? Sir, and your motion is just to give the primary and the general from the 2006 election.
It's to comply with the judge's orders.
To comply with the judge's order. Okay, well, over and above, if you're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar. I'd like to hear from those 35 other speakers today that signed up. I've got nothing to do on my schedule on Tuesdays except for today. I do want to check the New Hampshire results, so if we can be done by, let's say, 7 o'clock their time, I'd be happy. I'd certainly like to, if it's the chair's prerogative, at the really possibility of offending the chair, overrule that decision and ask that the 35 other speakers be heard today. And if that's not going to be possible, I'd also like to make a friendly amendment to the motion on the floor that we also go over and above the judge's ruling and release the RTA data that all those people in this... If anybody else is with them, I guess we should... I mean, it's the right thing to do, and that's my friendly amendment. If the maker of the motion will accept, we'll take a call to vote.
No, not at this point in time. I think that there are some legal impediments at this point, some statutory issues. I think that that's where we all eventually want to be, but I think those have to be resolved before we can do that.
Let me ask you the question, sir. If you're using GM software with these fundamental security flaws that can easily be manipulated for something as important as ballots, doesn't that argue in favor of independent confirmation of the accuracy and validity of your election?
What it argues for is basically much more documentation with regard to the log entries and why they occurred, and that's why I call for it in my report to the board. I said we need to make sure that anytime we have a log entry or any type of override or anything else we do with that machine, it needs to be adequately documented by the operators, verified independently by the observers who are there. That's what that means. That is how that is being resolved in my mind based on the recommendations I made to the board with regard to how to operate the tabulation of those election results.
Your recommendation is that you will appoint yourself 2 people who, in addition to Brian Crane or Brad Nelson, will be in charge of the computer. It's all internal, correct?
My recommendation is that the administrative controls of the computer after its certification is turned over to an independent group, independent within Pima County in our information technology department, and quite likely at least 2 of those individuals, because we're going to have dual passwords on those individuals as well. So then Brian Crane cannot have administrative access to the programming of the computer.
Well, you pick those 2, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
We are back on the record. The time is 13:42.
Bill, before you go further with your questions, my colleague has pointed out to me that Mr. March's computer has actually got a RJ45 plug in it, which is hooked to a network. And I'm going to ask you to shut that network down now, please.
I don't know. What are you saying?
I'm saying that he's transmitting to Mr. Brakey.
So?
And that they're communicating. And I'd like you to stop that right now, please.
Why? Why?
Mr. Risner, because the recordings that happen in this room are to happen in that room. I agreed to waive the 30-day requirement if we had one person available. This is out of order.
What do you mean you agreed to waive a 30-day?
The 30-day requirement. When you and I talked with Scott about would we waive and go with an expedited deposition schedule, I agreed to do that with you. I also said there would be one person present in the room. I did not agree to a tape recorder. I did not agree to a network where information is being transmitted to places we know not where. I'm going to ask that that be shut down.
Is there some rule that says that an expert consultant who's sitting near me can't be in communication with someone else? Is that against
Is there a
someone?
rule that says that you can have an open network that takes everything from a deposition and can transmit it anywhere? There is not. Now, I'd like to ask, I'm going to ask you again to take that down. If he's a consultant and he's the expert, he doesn't need that information.
Is this connected to a network or something?
Yes, but I'm not doing anything related. I was getting my computer configured so that I could take notes on it. I'm not. What's the issue?
Shuts down.
When Brian Crane is on the computer and does not have administrative control, he's still able to access the database and make changes, is he not?
Not to my knowledge. That's the intent of the recommendation. Cannot change the software. If something goes wrong with the software, he has to then go back and contact those who have administrative control, correct the deficiency under the observation of party observers, so that everyone has an idea of what is occurring. He cannot access the software.
Do you know the difference between software and database?
Software and databases, sure.
What's the difference?
Well, database is a series of information, tables, numbers.
Right.
Software manipulates it.
Right.
I'm going to object on foundation grounds here.
No, you're right with me.
Can
Thank
I
you.
proceed?
Thank you.
Yeah. I think what I was asking before is, isn't it a security problem that someone can enter gyms, print, otherwise work with gyms, and you don't know which person?
Yes.
So the tables with the numbers, that database thing, Mr. Crane will still be able to access all of those things, will he not?
I can't answer your question because you asked me a generic question about software and tables, and now we're on to the specifics of the gym database or the gym software, and I don't know.
Okay.
And I think that that's a decision ultimately that we can make upon receiving Mr. Huckleberry's report in February. I think that would be a more appropriate time to consider that, and we'd be very willing to consider it then.
Mr. Chairman,
what I would ask is that those folks who support the motion that's currently on the floor, I'd ask you all to stand up. Still no motion. Okay, very good.
Those who support the friendly amendment, please stand up to release the RTA. There's an answer.
Let's have roll call, please.
Do you accept the friendly amendment?
No.
No, you
Some
do not.
legal statutory impediments. I think that's where we want to go, but I don't think we can get there today. I think the first step is complying with the judge's orders. We have to have the judge's permission. The judge has to release the records. We can't.
Just a moment. I need the room to come to order, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest again that we let the 35 other speakers speak this morning so we can get the input of what is statutory from some of the experts in the room. We know we have lawyers, and we could also hear from our own county attorney.
So we got an election between Smith and Jones.
Yes.
Smith's got 4,000 votes, Jones got 3,000.
Yes.
Now, so what I'm saying is that you can take and put Jones' name up here, and you put Smith's name down here, and suddenly Jones would have 4,000 and Smith 3. Can you do that?
I've never done it myself.
Yeah. But it can be done, can it?
In an MDB file, a lot can be done.
Yeah.
Now, whether it can go back in GEMS, I don't know. Because you can take data like an Excel table and move whatever you want.
Sure.
Now, whether the core program can read it again, I have no idea.
And don't you know that if you flip those totals, that not only does it change the totals, but the software will automatically change every single precinct reporting. Are you aware of that?
The way a candidate is placed into a table,
yeah,
that sounds correct.
Now, you've yourself used Microsoft Access to enter GEMS to add data, haven't you?
No.
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 You never have?
No.
How about in 1996? You think you did it in 1996?
Not the way you're phrasing the question, no.
Yeah, okay. So in 1996, do you recall whether you had to merge some punch card data with Diebold data because Pima County was using a blended system?
It was global, and yes.
Okay.
It was not Diebold at the time. It was
Okay.
global.
It was GEMS.
Yes, it was GEMS.
And you entered GEMS. And did you use Microsoft Access to enter GEMS?
No.
Okay. You used your password?
No.
No? How did you do it? Just 1 second. Okay. So let me
Okay, Bill,
make sure my question is
I'm going to
accurate.
object again, Bill. You are so far off the mark. 1996 has nothing to do with the 2006 reports. Either you can find that, or I would be more than happy to go to the judge at this point in time.
Okay. So we'll be clear.
I'm going to ask that you confine yourself to questions related to the 2006 reports and anything reasonably associated therewith. 1996 is not reasonably associated therewith. If you're building a case for something entirely different,
you can instruct him not to answer. It's an option you have if you want to utilize that.
I understand what my options are, and I also have an option to call the judge. And I'll be happy to do that. Now, do you want to go back to relevant information and deal with the reports at issue?
Yeah, I think that's a permissible area of inquiry.
I don't believe it is.
Okay. my question, I said Jim's, and corrected, I should have said Jim's data file.
I assume you're referring to the MDB file.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you did, it was necessary in that election for you to go into the Jim's data file, was it not, sir?
Hold on. Do we need to go to the judge, or do you want to change your line of questioning?
Look, this is a proper question. Call the judge. If you believe you need to stop and call the judge, do it.
We are going off the record. The time is 13:56.
Later on, the whole case flipped because we were able to show that the security was so bad at every stage that when we ultimately went to trial, the county is there now saying the security is so bad, this stuff is so easy to cheat, it's so easy to cover your tracks that we can't let you know what's going on because of that. You know, totally the opposite.
Holy mackerel.
Revealing the structure of the database, or revealing the database, or disclosing it will reveal the structure. It'll get exactly at what he wanted, the SQL queries as to how everything is set up. He wants the programming. They're not satisfied with the results. It will show, even if they're looking at past elections, a series of patterns as to how the county sets up elections.
I think the notion of using a purloined or acquired MDB file to spoof election results is easy for people to understand, because most people have an interest in the outcome of elections, so they can visualize using an MDB file to alter the outcome of election.
If they have it prior to the election, at a certain point when we're developing, some things don't change, and then they would be able to create any memory card they wanted for TSX or a AccuVote and change it the way they want, or create just mayhem.
For example, I think we heard earlier today, printing bogus ballots. Those ballots may or may not pass counting. They may not alter the outcome of the election, but they could create a denial of service attack at the scanners. They may have to then be pulled out of the scanners, processed separately. So disrupting an election may be as desirable a goal to a hacker as altering an election outcome.
But then we've got what's probably the most serious risk, is this idea of mayhem and chaos. I believe Dr. King used the idea of chaos, and Mr. Crane said, well, you know, said there's mayhem. And the fact of the matter is that there are people out there who have an interest in discrediting the system. They have an interest in discrediting the administration. They have an interest in discrediting the electoral system. They have an interest in discrediting particular vendors.
You talked about spoofing and people trying to sow chaos. You have examples of that?
Well, anecdotal. A guy used a hammer to break a DRE machine at a precinct. I believe it was in Pennsylvania, in the November 2006 election. Knew he would be arrested, but did it as a way to make a statement. It was very disruptive, as you can imagine, at the precinct. That's an example.
I made the decision based on technical recommendations from information technology staff and experts.
This was a recommendation from John Moffett, is that correct?
It was a recommendation from Dr. Moffett, yes.
Let's say the polls are closed. That's the critical thing I want to concentrate on for this question.
Okay.
The polls are closed, and at what moment it's determined appropriate, the Democratic Party can get a copy of the database. Assume that's the case, okay?
Fine.
And the Republicans get a copy, okay? The Libertarians, the Greens, if they ask for it, they get a copy. And what you're saying is that the Democratic Party could type up or mess up and then come out and say, hey, we have a different votes cast than what your election department shows, right? That's what you're saying, isn't it?
That's because the Democratic Party has the program to
Yeah,
print the report.
but that's what you're saying that is your concern, is we would announce
Yes.
that our results are different.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the Republicans have a copy, the other parties have a copy, you have the original database, and you have the ballots.
That's right.
Have you ever heard of like the historical term of being tarred and feathered and run out of town on a board? If that was attempted, what do you think that would do, since you could absolutely prove it was fraudulent, to the Democratic Party's credibility in the community?
Well, the issue, the only...
Anyway, I've got it right, okay? That's what you were, that's your concern number one.
That is my concern.
Okay.
So the main result of all this stuff is it's got us pretty excited to find out what they're hiding. Because there's got to be some reason. That's a lot of trouble to go to.
I'm quite liberal with respect to the interpretation of the open meeting law in these respects, if things can come fairly underneath those. But I think when you're starting to go beyond what the current judge's order and what our current context is, that it becomes more problematic.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Huckleberry, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think what we've said ultimately, and my discussion has been with the county attorney, is that the final answer on the RTA will not be made, or basically there'll continue to be concerns with regard to the RTA election until it is actually recounted, until those paper ballots, regardless of whether we, look at what computer files and who looks at what computer files, the trust in the public will only be restored in the RTA until the actual paper ballots are recounted. That requires a court order, or it requires a change in statutory law. And so until you have a court order, until you have a statutory law, it's really inappropriate to pursue the RTA discussion unless Mr. Risner and the Democratic Party pursue that, and I think we would be happy to sign, and some of the discussions we've had with the county attorney is to get those ballots recounted, but I believe it's almost impossible for us to do that.
Understood. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Carroll?
I vote no, and I request once more that these other speakers are heard today.
Supervisor Day? Supervisor Day? Supervisor Day?
With all the clapping, I vote aye.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion passes 4-1. As I said, I think this is an ongoing discussion that is going to continue with the Democratic Party and with all the parties involved, so that we can get a better grip on things. I don't think that we're saying today that we are not going to release any other information, but I think we have some legal impediments, and I look forward to continuing this discussion in the future, because I think we can all get ourselves on the same page. We're going to take another break so we can clear the room. Thank you.
Don't clear the room. Just stay seated. Don't go anywhere. Stay seated. Just stay seated. Stay seated. That would be.
I just comment that, you know, as the chair here, if you're willing to stay and you have some time, we will be willing to hear your comments and call to the audience, okay? So everybody knows that'll be available to you. But I would ask.
Jobs and they have to work and they could sacrifice.
Mr. Brakey, please have a seat. You're out of order. Mr. Brakey, please have a seat. You're out of order. Mr. Brakey, please have a seat. Have a seat, Mr. Brakey.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brakey, Mr. Chairman, if I could be recognized, I think Mr. Brakey has a point. You know, a lot of these people weren't able to make the Elections Division meetings that occurred. Most of them happened during business hours. And I know I went to one, and it wasn't quite as attended as this event today. Isn't it possible to just reopen what you all just voted on and have the hearing part continued so we can hear from these 35 people then? You know, because it could be a while if we have to hear, if we have to hear the entire agenda, because you have some other items on the agenda that could take a while in themselves. Why can we just move to reopen? I know I can't reconsider because I wasn't on the prevailing side, but can't we reopen this discussion so these 35 people can get back to work? I noticed some have already had to leave because of job requirements.
I'd appreciate it if everybody could please be patient with us and stick around and please submit your comments to us during that call to the audience period. Mr. Brakey, you're out of order again. I'm going to ask you one more time.
Brakey is in order.
Please, Mr. Brakey.
We are here to get the transparency that we have demanded for our country. This is not about
Mr. Brakey, please, you're out of order.
It's about our country.
To show you that I'm a good-hearted person, I'm going to go ahead and hear your speakers. We'll call a call to the audience now and we'll hear you. Okay? It's not going to change the effects of today's meeting. But out of respect for you, I'm going to do that, not because Mr. Brakey is yelling and screaming and turning this meeting into what is really an improper affair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move the call to the audience. I'm going to hear these folks, okay?
Second.
This is not a motion, Ray. Our first speaker is going to be Donna Wrangler. Donna, come on up here and give me your name and address for the record. And thank you for spending your time here with us today.
Mr. Chairman, although we've entered call to the audience, I wonder if I couldn't ask a question. I would just implore that, and I beg on behalf of all those that have spoken and they're begging, for this board to reconsider Supervisor Bronson's motion, reopen the hearing, and then hear from those people whose speaker cards were lost, who are now back in a regular hearing. Otherwise, we just proceed here in our call to the audience mode, and I even can't get an answer from the county attorney on something that's pivotal to the reason you're all here. And thank you.
I want to make a motion to reconsider. call the question. Roll call. Oh.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Carroll?
Aye.
Supervisor Day?
Aye.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Mr. March?
So maybe I can clarify a few issues here. It's an undisputed fact at this point that there is no safety or security difference possible between releasing the final database from a given election series and releasing all of the files for a given election series. All the data is sitting on a hard disk owned by the Pima County Democratic Party in the court's vault 75 yards from here. So in other words, the data was all archived and stuck on a hard disk, and I believe, what was it, April of '07, right? Okay, we archived the stuff to a pair of hard disks, one hard disk owned by the county, one owned by the Democratic Party. We put them in a cop car. I was in the passenger seat of the cop car. We drove it down to the vault and we put it there. So all we have to do now is take that computer out of the vault and just copy the RTA 06 General and 06 Primary stuff as well. And Mr. Moffat will tell you those files are understood to be public record, and you've already given us a copy of the same material from December '06. We want to look for any changes between those. So there's those text files involved, and then there's the complete set of files from RTA General and 06 Primary. Copying those from disk to disk over in the court's basement will take all of, what do you figure, 10, 15 minutes? I mean,
yeah, we should be able to do it quickly. When we're talking about this, we've got a lot of files both in backup format as well as
right.
So we've got to go through the directories and find them in all those areas.
But they're sorted pretty good.
Shortly.
They're sorted pretty good. We've got that.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Moffat has answered. How long, Mr. Moffat?
Oh.
Would it be, could you have these files to be released, the series from beginning to the end of the cycle for the RTA, the primary and the general by Friday? Why let it wait and continue to let this fester?
And I wasn't at the meeting, but it must have been an interesting sight for the Democratic activists arguing with the Democratic majority to release more information and to drop their appeal.
Certainly an unusual scene.
And I think the Democrats on or the Board of Supervisors made a good decision here, because if they are going to do a complete hand count of these RTA ballots, you know, it will settle it one way or another whether this election was allegedly rigged. And I think otherwise you're going to have these conspiracy theories going around for a long time. So this will actually settle it. And I would say the Democrats brought up a lot of important points in terms of ballot security through the course of this lawsuit.
I will say, Jim, the local Democratic Party, as you know, very upset, though, that the documents as of, I don't think they have been released today.
No, they have not been released. There's computer files involved, and there's some concern about the best way to transmit these computer files, whether they should release it on a used laptop or a new laptop, and whether there could be further computer jiggling with this release.
No Wi-Fi, no squat. The only Wi-Fi in here is limited to the Pima government page anyway, just so you know. We're going to build an automated analysis tool to look at these files. Yes, you're talking 3 to 6 weeks time frame. Inside of each of the data files, there is a set of timestamps on each individual table. Most of what's in the database is not supposed to change from one end of the election cycle, where the beginning LNA test is, through the end. Things like candidate ID numbers, ballot rotation, ballot layout, none of that is allowed legally to change through the election cycle. So this, in an automated fashion, will see if any of those fixed tables containing that kind of legally fixed information has in fact changed throughout the election cycle.
And it was 86, and we're seeing 77 up there right now. That's a concern.
Now, we copied a couple of those, remember, when, I think this is one of the ones we had exceptions, but there's only a couple.
These are all 1107, 06, strictly GBS. There were 86 files.
What this eliminates is any possibility that the county's computer could be rigged to alter or damage the files or destroy them outright as they come off of one of the hard disks. So it's basically, it's a no cheating.
It's interesting. I want to tell you what the effects of this are. The board, I mean, it was, I don't know if you saw the board's meeting or not with respect to this. It was a somewhat chaotic affair, to say, put it politely. But here's the dilemma that the board is faced with. The dilemma is it could either just agree to turn over the limited files that you ordered and that you thought in your discretion would not impair the integrity of other elections going forward. Or it had to make the choice with respect to, well, here, there's all these allegations with respect to the RTA.
Under breaking news, I have further evidence of tampering with the RTA results has been exposed by a former county employee. He will testify under oath that Brian Crane, election computer operator, feared discovery of the fact that he, at the direction of election director Brad Nelson, had tampered with the data from the RTA election, materially fixing the election to approve rather than reject the proposed bill. So,
yes.
Since 2006, a group of skeptical voters have questioned the integrity of the RTA election. Now they say they have proof. Testimony from a Tucson man claiming an elections worker told him at a bar earlier this year he'd fix the election for his bosses.
He was told by Brian Crane, the computer operator, that he fixed the election on instruction from his bosses, that he did what they told him to do, which was to rig the election.
We took this claim to the head of Pima County Elections.
Did you tell anybody to rig this election?
I did not tell anyone to rig this election. We are all deputized officials and sworn to follow the state laws, and integrity is our middle name here.
Risner brought forward a witness that testified and signed an affidavit that that the county's computer operator told him that he was ordered to fix the election and that he did it. And I saw in the morning paper that the computer operator said that meeting never happened and he didn't even know where that meeting place was, but a number of people saw him there and they saw him talking to the whistleblower that turned him in. So we know he's not telling the truth.
The board is down in a position that has a real legitimate concern about the integrity of elections going forward. It has to weigh that now upon the idea of like, well, wait a minute, we got to clear up the doubt about this past election. And I think the board could reasonably conclude, okay, we might as well just give him, the RTA stuff. That should put this matter to bed. This matter should be all done with. There should be no need for these folks to come back in here and take up your time to say, well, we want yet more files.
And this is important because, Your Honor, in arriving at this decision, had to balance. You had to balance the public interest of a political party that's part of the system, that has been trying to improve the system, that has worked for decades and decades, and isn't trying to destroy an electoral system. You have to balance what can we use to legitimately perform our function against what does the county have on the other side. And what they had on the other side is there's people out there that could do something, and there's people that want to engage in the system, and maybe a political party would present and print fake reports. And you clearly pointed out in your order, heck, that would even be a crime. It's not only stupid, it would be an absolute crime.
I use techniques is that when I deal with somebody, I get really angry, I close my eyes, and I think it's something I love, my grandchildren. I do what I do because I love my country, I love my grandchildren, and life gave me a rear view mirror to do a few things. And I've been an activist all my life, but I've never done anything more important than I'm doing now.
The database lawsuit itself we've won that. The time to appeal for the county has expired, and we just need to go to the courthouse and pick up our copy of the hard drive.
After a year and a half in court with the county, the Democratic Party went down to the courthouse to retrieve our disk drive that had been sequestered by the court in May of 2007.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've had this lawsuit for Democratic Party for a long time.
Yeah.
And when we won, we got to pick up the database.
Right.
Yeah. John Moffett, and we were coming over to do that now.
Right.
But he sent an email saying that you all delivered it to someone else other than us. So we're here to find out if you've got it and what happened.
Well, and I was going to look, I got a call on this too. I don't know what he's talking about, but I'll go back and look at our logs and see.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
So give me a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So you have 2 copies of each.
She's the boss. That's Patricia Nola.
O'clock in the morning.
You can't go direct in here unless you have permission from the court.
So after we won the lawsuit and the judge said that it was okay for us to retrieve our disk drive, we went down to the courthouse to get it on Monday and it wasn't there.
And what Gary said at that time is he thought that the Democrats had already picked theirs up, because I remember him saying that, and I just asked him to remember if that was true. He's not sure, so we're checking through the rest. Are you still filming? I remember when we released the Democrat database.
Wrong. What you did was the county attorney and I both came. There was one box.
I wasn't here.
Okay. There was one box.
Okay.
And we walked with it, with a deputy carried it over to the supervisor's office. One box came back.
Okay, but they were both in one box?
They were both in one box.
All right, got it.
And you let John Moffett come and take our box.
We don't.
We're waiting.
Would it be your box or would it be jointly both of your boxes?
You have the order. Right? You don't need another copy.
No, I bought it online.
Yeah.
I got it in the case. You know, if you want to get nasty about this, we can get nasty about it. I'm trying to help you here, and this has been a very unusual and different way that it happens.
I didn't think he was getting nasty at all. He was just, you know, asking her how come they didn't have any documentation of this thing.
Usually it's all done through the courtroom clerk, through all of that. This is a whole different way that this has been handled.
Right.
So that's why we're having an issue.
That's right. It was handled in your vault with an order telling you to give it to us at the same time.
We're gonna, okay, I didn't see the order. I found the box.
The clerk of the court, Patty Noland, told us that that she had been told that Bill Risner had picked up our disk drive sometime before. And we said, okay, do you have some record of that? No.
How you doing?
Good morning, John.
How you doing?
What do you got, John?
Got what they gave me when I left. Locked it up in my office when I left. It's still sealed. But we're going to open it, and I want to go through the process. You know, identify the seal number and stuff like that. Do I need to have an attorney?
We photographed the condition of the box and note various seal numbers. We have some prior photographs of the box before it came over here.
Are you allowing this?
To the clerk's office.
I'm waiting. Let me check with Patty and make sure.
Put the camera away, please.
And make sure. So you have
Well, they
prior
say-
photographs. You want to take photographs now, so you have the comparison.
Right.
Yes.
Right. We asked her what she did have records of. She finally found a log sheet that had her signature and one of her staff members' signature on it that said that John Moffett from the county had picked up a box the day after the judge had signed his order. And in fact, the order had not yet been registered with the clerk of the court on the day that John picked up that disk drive. And Bill Risner did not have a copy of the judge's order until several days later. So there was no way that he could have picked up the disk drive because he didn't even know the judge had signed the order yet. But John Moffett was there, like Johnny on the spot, getting that disk drive. Well, the two disk drives were both in a single box. And the Democratic Party was supposed to be able to retrieve their disk drive, and there was a second disk drive that belonged to the county that the county was supposed to be able to get at the same time. That's what the order said, at the same time. Oh, and I wanted to ask you, the file cabinet in which you locked this, who has access to the file cabinet besides you?
Me. I have the only key.
And it's a file cabinet, not a safe. It's not a combination safe.
cabinet.
It's just a file cabinet.
Right.
And who has access to your office besides you?
Well, my office is locked at night, but it's open during the day, so. anyone
So
on the
pretty
10th
much
floor-
anybody on the floor could have access to your office.
But
They couldn't even find any paperwork with John Moffat's signature on it acknowledging that he had taken the disk drive. If that disk drive had disappeared entirely and John had denied all connection with it, there would have been no chain of custody, no record of that disk drive leaving the clerk of the court's office.
We received enough information to ask the Attorney General's office to look into a couple of things. One was the printing, which we saw as a regular basis of actual vote tallies a week or 2 weeks before the election, and to examine the RTA. We wanted the ballots examined because it turned out that the actual ballots themselves were still in the custody of the Pima County Treasurer.
To do a hand count of all the ballots, of all the RT ballots.
All ballots, okay. With witnesses,
Yeah, with witnesses.
and then we don't need a set ballot.
Right.
There actually was somewhat of a heated exchange between Mr. Donahoe and the investigator from the Attorney General's office saying, look, let's just look at the ballots. One of the documents we have here are some emails from the John Evans from the Attorney General's office to a Michael Seamus, a national expert. And the national expert says, look, you can look at the computers, but why don't you just count the ballots and look at the ballots themselves? They, of course, refused to do that.
The fact is that they didn't back up the databases until Friday after the RTA, okay? The fact is we can look into the databases and we can see the footprints because when you work with Microsoft Access, you pull tables from each part and they had to print certain reports that never printed before. And the point is, Terry, we need your help.
Then, in the investigation, not only did they not do that, this is one of the few investigations that I'm aware of that was essentially run by the suspects. We have, I have here, this is the case opening sheet, the official document from the Attorney General's office opening the investigative file. And their form in the office is list all suspects, answer Pima County Elections Division. So there was no question as to what they were investigating or who the suspects were.
Are you aware that Brian Crane was drinking with somebody? He did admit that he did hack the database.
Bill Risner mentioned that to me
I
yesterday.
know. It's not hearsay. It is worth being investigated. If you can call it hearsay, I think it's worth investigating. You are our top champion,
That
sir.
may be an investigative lead that needs to be followed.
Well, please do, because we have pulled a lot and we have a special program being, we got all the databases. The footprint is clearly shown.
I mean, for instance, telling someone, I mean, this is beyond belief, but he's told people I know, you know, this thing's still open, and if Bill would bring me a smoking gun, I would proceed the investigation. Like, dude, a smoking gun?
We have the whole house on fire, including all the guns, yes.
In our culture, that means you
got everything that's indefensible. Like, no kidding you would if you had the smoking gun.
Yeah, but
I spoke one day with Mr. Evans of the Attorney General's office, and he explained that IBETA, there was a company hired by the suspects and the Attorney General's office to look at the data, and that the county attorney's office would have it. The election division would have the advance report to comment on it. You know, I said, I'd like a copy of that. On behalf of the Democratic Party, we were the ones that filed a complaint, and we would like a copy. But oh no, he totally refused, against legal requirements, to let us have it. Said I should get it from the suspects because it was a public record. Get it from them.
That you've got a severely flawed election system. That's what
Fatally
this
flawed
report
is more
shows.
favorably.
But the fact that the election system is an error is part of the problem. I give you a lot of credit for helping to bring that to the forefront.
I said, well, I want it from you if it's a public record. Get it, you know, you give it to me. You're required to. They refused. We had a series of letters back and forth. Finally, I read in the newspaper that the suspects indeed are going over the advance report. So I asked them, okay, give me a copy of it. They said, no, you can't have a copy because the Attorney General's office has told us that not to give you a copy. And so we couldn't get a copy and wouldn't know what it was until a press conference where they announced that the county had been cleared and there was a report of what the tests had been.
It disturbs me that the suspects in that case seem to have a level of control over the investigation, over the outcome of the IBETA report. Is that a normal practice for the people who are suspects in a crime to have partial control over the investigation, work closely with the investigators when the people complaining about the crime are completely blocked from all communication with the investigators? It simply seems to me like the RTA investigation did not happen in a reasonable fashion, and I don't think the outcome of that investigation was reasonable.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Let me address that. I think that's pretty much in my bailiwick. We did an investigation of the RTA election. We hired one of 3 national consultants as an impartial investigator who are certified by the Federal Elections Commission to do this kind of work. In other words, to go through the elaborate forensic checks that are required to say whether or not a computer system has accurately counted the vote or not, or whether it's been tampered with. They did that, and we did it in partnership with Pima County, which, as Mr. Marsh says, is one of the, well, if not the suspect, at least they employ a few that people have said might have done suspicious actions. Your question is it normal to have this collaboration? It's not, of course. But in this case, we only had a limited pool of experts that had been certified. There are only 3, to my knowledge, in the entire country. And the database remains fixed. In other words, the information that they were querying is not going to change. And so the bottom line here was that we had a set of questions from the Attorney General's office. There was another set of questions that Pima County Elections had. We jointly paid for the investigation, and they asked theirs and we asked ours. There was input from the community, including from your organization.
Well, I've read the back channel emails after the fact that went on between the county elections office and their tech guy, John Moffitt, and IBETA. And from a technical point of view, the IBETA was told things by the county that I know not to be correct. I feel the IBETA investigation appears to be a whitewash.
I'm going to, as the host of we're in my building, I apologize for being disrespectful, but we have a ton of people here and we want to get through as many of the questions as possible, so I'm sure people from all of the offices will hang around after the forum so that we can get more in detail on any of the questions that we have tonight, but I want to make sure that everyone gets all the different questions that they have asked.
What could be more important than our vote?
I sent a letter to Attorney General's office months ago saying that we would cooperate and the experts in the Democratic Party would cooperate with the Attorney General, give them any information we have. The stuff that John Brakey has found, what Mickey Donahoe has found, what Tom Ryan,
we can explain what they did in this case, but the Attorney General has not accepted that invitation. He just won't do it. And, you know, as far as, I mean, my belief is it's because he thinks they cheated and he doesn't want to know.
I've got one more here on the RTA election. It says, why am I avoiding counting the ballots? I just want to make it very clear, I don't have the authority to count the ballots. That would take a court order to make that happen. Sir.
That's my question, and it's Ryan Hartman. It's my understanding that you or Barbara Wall are the only people who can order it.
No, that's not correct. With probable cause, we can go to a court and request that they order it. But ultimately, it would take a court order.
But we must, for the next election, prevent it from happening. That is in the public interest. People, when there are decisions made on policies or when people are elected, we must know that that was based on a majority vote that was accurately and honestly counted. You look at the Arizona Constitution, that's why I listed all of it. It is rock bottom. It is solid. And I don't think that you say, yep, it was rigged election, it was illegal, and we have to, just because there's an attorney general that could do something about it. That's his job. That's, our political party's concerned about the next election. And it doesn't help to look at an individual and say, well, we've got this attorney general that might do something. What if it was Attorney General Blagojevich that was in charge?
Anybody interested in election integrity, come on over here. Anybody wants to know that our vote counts?
Okay, good. That's a good idea.
Because, Terry, we know that's not true.
What's not true?
It's not true. You have the power, as the Attorney General, as an investigator, to take those ballots and go ahead and examine them. Bill, is this true or not?
Terry, you know, you're talking about a recount as a technical matter, but in terms of investigating a crime, you have information that that's evidence of a crime.
We have probable cause that a crime has been committed. We could ask a court to do the count, yes.
If you don't need probable cause, you subpoena.
I can just go out with no supposition at all and ask them to do a recount. I don't think so.
No, you can't do a recount, but you can subpoena the ballots as evidence of a crime. Show up with a subpoena, have your truck there, take possession of the ballots, and examine the ballots to see if a crime occurred. That's a separate matter than going to the court and doing an election recount. You can determine if a crime occurred, and you can do it quickly. You don't need probable cause to issue a subpoena. You do it all the time without. For investigative leads, do you subpoena documentary evidence as part of an investigation to see if there's a crime?
We have not the capacity to do. I mean, that's not something that our office does, is recount elections. That's something election people do.
No, I understand that you don't do recounts.
What did you say? I said the election people are crooked as the day is long. It's pretty obvious, and I don't appreciate having my vote stolen. It's been stolen twice.
You can settle this issue.
If you think
you can settle this issue, Terry. $1 million has been spent.
Does your office do white-collar crimes prosecution? Yeah. And do you, the bank or other institution, do you subpoena documents as part of that investigation?
Yes.
Yes. And do you show probable cause to subpoena the documents? No. If it's an investigative lead or party investigation, you do it. You can do the same thing in terms of those ballots. You can subpoena the ballots and you can count them. If you determine that a crime has been committed, you can proceed to prosecute the crime. That's a separate matter than talking about a recount. A recount is a separate matter. And sure, that would involve Georgia's, that would involve...
Continue to look into it. But we do have to have at least a reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred.
What about
There's lots of it. There's lots of it.
We're looking into the affidavit that you did.
And we'll give you more.
Yeah, because we got the database.
Sent a letter. I sent a letter to John Evans again saying the Democratic Party will give you whatever aid you need. If he wants to know where to look and how to look, we'll show him.
Of course we do.
Well, I haven't heard back. I'm just saying that offer was
Terry,
made.
look at this, okay? We got the iBeta report. We have gone through it very carefully. The iBeta report even says it, and you keep using it as a defense and saying, "Oh, they were cleared by the iBeta report." It doesn't clear them. I don't understand how you can say this. Okay, we have the databases. We know that they probably reloaded 149 of the memory cards because they failed. Because it looks like 10 months before the election, they bought a machine to reprogram the memory cards, and they owned the machine 10 months before that, okay? We know that right here, that on the 19th and 20th, okay, they reloaded again, 31 of the memory cards, okay? They didn't even back up the database. The election was on Tuesday. They didn't back it up Wednesday. They didn't back it up Thursday. They backed it up Friday at 5 o'clock. Okay? And I can give you 10 years of records and show you that they always backed up on time. We have found something, and you have the power, sir, and I beg of you. You have the power under investigation to end this. $1 million has been spent in this community. There's 6 lawyers now trying to stop the things from being destroyed. And all you have to do is say, count them and see if there was something criminally or not. That's all. But if you don't, then we're going to be winding up chasing you around the state.
He just said subpoenaing the ballots would be a fishing expedition.
Sounds like an investigation to me.
He wants to call it a fishing trip.
He just wants.
We want to know
nothing to do with it. The good old boy network. He wants nothing.
There's a new round tonight in the fight over local election security.
This is a story we've been following for some time now. Activists, as we have told you, have already won the release of electronic records from the 2006 Regional Transportation Authority election. Well, now they want to stop Pima County from destroying the paper trail. KOLD News 13's Jim Becker live downtown with the latest tonight. Jim?
Well, activists say this deposition, an affidavit of a county employee, a former county employee, claiming an elections worker says he rigged the election. Well, they say that's proof positive that there was tampering, and there are other documents in here that suggest the Arizona Attorney General is protecting the people tampering with elections. However, they're calling on the county to release 120,000 slips of paper that verify votes cast during the 2006 RTA election. A judge already said they could see the computer database, but the group wants to see if those paper slips match up with the computer database.
This is our freedom at stake. If somebody is using a black box computer to make any election, and they can make any election come out any way they want it, and the direction of the country must be decided by the people. If we lose that, it's everything.
You're saying that if we can't get this change out of the election department, and if we can't get the Board of Supervisors to get rid of the director of the election department and make the change themselves, then we're going to change the Board of Supervisors. What makes you think you're going to win an election against this Board of Supervisors when the entire election process is crooked?
I would say the victory of hope over experience. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody.
The treasurer, Beth Ford, treasurer of Pima County, she's in charge of those slips of paper, and she says she didn't want to destroy them right away because there were court lawsuits, court action. But state law says that they must be destroyed 6 months after the election. It's way overdue, and she says unless she gets some legal guidance on this, she plans to destroy them fairly soon.
Why should we not get to the bottom of it?
Why we should not get to the bottom of it is that despite everyone's intentions and desire to have election integrity, we know that it will have major consequences anytime you do things. First of all, just the consequence of the litigation, the cost expense of the litigation. Number two, let's assume it is rigged. And let's assume what everybody has said, there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have a sitting political body that this determination that you're going to not let somebody run some machine in the future is going to be very minor compared to the impact that
the untold story, you know, the story that would be out there, but then you'd say, but I can't upset the election.
So it's kind of interesting because judges like to, they view political cases as someone handing them a hot rock. You know, they really want to hand it to someone else. They really want to get rid of that thing. They really don't want to make the decision. And like this judge, even in his ruling and in court, the thing that he can't get in his head, he says, well, what if I find out they cheat? You know, what do I do then? The issue simply is, if it is a fact that using a computer with lousy security, a crook's running it and is rigging elections, does the court have the ability to give prospective relief? We say the answer is yes. So, of course, explain to the judge that that's our concern. Our concern is the next election. And actually, if you want to speed ahead to the end of the line, what we want the judge to do ultimately is to order that the ballots be scanned, and so there's a public record. It's either on the internet or DVDs available, so people can look at the ballots and see, count them. They won't be able to cheat because it's a matter of record what the ballots are. But the court can enter prospective relief to absolutely prevent this from happening in the future, and you've got jurisdiction to do that. You're obligated to do that. It's your oath, it's your job, it's what courts are here for. You just can't wash your hands and say, yep. No,
Sir, do not please say that I'm washing my hands of this matter.
No.
That is an insult to this court.
I wasn't.
Please do not make that as an issue here.
I think every time this stuff's out there, then the public gets the idea that here's the judge that's covering up for him, and the county attorney, and the attorney general, and they're all in it, and so forth and so on. It's a very...
But that doesn't stop it from happening. The public knows, I mean, apparently the public is aware, they say, many people, that of a lot of things, but nothing is done about it.
Well,
so if the next election gets swapped, and we still don't count ballots,
sometimes all you do is raise the cost. Everything we've looked at confirms that it was rigged.
Attorney Bill Risner has some new allies in his quest to try to prove the results of the 2006 RTA election, which established a half-cent sales tax for transportation needs, was fixed. The Republican Party has now joined the Democrats in their quest to find what they believe is the truth.
I don't think the Democrat Party is trying to get to the bottom of this to overturn the RTA election, but let's get to the bottom of it to find out what procedures, what policies are in place here in Pima County to make sure that future elections are held in a manner where we have confidence in the results.
There has been a notice of appeal that has been filed.
A court hearing in Tucson this morning only muddled the issue. The only way to determine the fairness of the election, they believe, is to recount all of the ballots from the election. Ballots which should have been, by law, destroyed 2 years ago, but are being preserved for this case.
Every data point is consistent with it being rigged. We just don't know if it was rigged because the ballots are the only definitive answer to that question.
And you can't get your hands on the ballots.
And we can't get our hands on the ballot.
And now, in this statement released today, Arizona Attorney General Terry Goddard announced he has court permission to take possession of those ballots. But he says that strict security measures will be taken to ensure the integrity of the ballots and the investigative process. The Democrats are not so sure.
We were near an agreement with Bethany to get the poll tapes. Those are public records. They're different from ballots. And so what the Attorney General is doing is he is preventing us from continuing our investigation. He's preventing us from looking at the poll tapes.
How is he doing that?
He's going to truck them to Maricopa County. He's going to get them out of Pima County under the control of his and a secret judge in a secret proceeding in Maricopa County. And we can't participate at all in this. At every step of the way,
Terry Goddard has refused to cooperate with the Democratic Party and has frustrated our abilities to look at public records.
Not just the Democratic Party now, it's the Republican Party as well.
The Republican Party as well.
Your Honor, I have certain matters that were under seal from the Maricopa County Superior Court pursuant to a court order. And I could show you that to give you an idea of what's happening, but I also believe, well, I will not get into the area of whether you have jurisdiction if you want to see this, but it would explain what Mr. Richardson's.
Is there any objection to me seeing this? What is it? It's a confidential sealed matter?
It's a sealed.
That I couldn't share with anybody else?
No.
Yeah, I object.
I object as well.
Yeah, I don't. We object to secrecy in general, and we have a history with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
We're in Phoenix, Arizona, chasing the ballots from 150 miles south of here, from Pima County for the 2006 RTA election. The State Attorney General's office, led by Attorney General Goddard, grabbed the ballots from Pima County and hauled them up here, reportedly as part of some investigation. The problem is he didn't involve any outside oversight of where they were going, who was taking them, and we don't know where the ballots are located. So we're here in Phoenix to try to find out where they are and under what circumstances they're being stored. We're going to make two basic stops. We've heard that they are over at the elections office in Maricopa County. We're going to try and chase them down there. We're also going to go directly to Terry Goddard's main office at 1275 West Washington and flat out ask him, where are our ballots?
Well, what we want to do is to go ahead and get these ballots under camera, and that we know that nobody can be playing around with them, and get them secured. And really, they ought to be taken back to Pima County, because we have people down there trained to go ahead and handle it. We want election observers to go ahead and observe the ballots and the counts. And that's usually directed from the parties, because Arizona is a party oversight state.
What the hell? Hold on.
Mr. Valenzuela's here.
Hello. Oh, hi. Do you know where the RTA ballots are being stored?
They're not in our possession yet.
They're not in your possession yet, you say?
Correct.
Is there plans to bring them into your possession?
Right now is our understanding that the Attorney General has requested that we conduct a hand count audit on those ballots.
I see. Is there going to be party involvement in that process? Is that going to be a public process?
It's going to be a public process.
Okay, but you're not sitting on the ballots beforehand?
No, because we're not
And that's
issued to.
Okay.
We
Once
don't
they
have
get
a problem
here.
with that. We don't have a problem with that. That sounds so
Do you
far.
have any idea of the time frame?
We have, my understanding, and again, we've agreed that we will be capable of doing it, and the time frame we have given them was from April 6th to April 17th. So in that window is when we were available to do it. So we've agreed that then they, again, being the entity in charge, will take control of when they want to within that window, and then we.
Okay. So that's, in other words,
Yeah,
you're trying
yeah.
to put it off till after this election that's going on.
Exactly. Close down the
I
March.
understand that completely. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't know where they're physically stored right now.
Right.
The Attorney General's got them. Boy. The counting will be done by staff of Maricopa County Elections, but observers will be able to sit close enough to actually see the ballots and make sure a fair hand count is actually going on. So far it looks like Maricopa Elections is actually behaving fairly reasonably. So far, at least.
We will put our seals in the box.
So now the question is, let's find out what the AG's office is up to. So we're there now. We're walking in.
Yeah, not a problem.
Well, Jimmy called Bill up and he talked to Don Conrad, but Don Conrad refused to tell him anything. I don't know what kind of cooperation this is. Now, this is who we've asked to see, is Don Conrad or Terry Goddard. But Bill knew nothing, after talking to Conrad. But Jimmy found out, of course, we learned in Maricopa's election department for April 6th. Terry Goddard had an opportunity, which a win-win, right or wrong, if he had left the ballots in the custody that they were, when they were moved out, if we moved to a separate place, got the parties together to put their own seals on the boxes. But no, they just come in, take them with a secret court order from a secret judge, and our court hearing a week ago Monday. It's very disturbing. What'd you say, Jim?
Really?
It's incredible.
It's third world standard of justice, not first world. It's insane.
That's suspicious.
We got to try and convince him of that.
The AG is not in the office.
How about Don Conrad?
He's not available either.
Really?
There's
nobody that can come down.
That's what they told me to tell you guys. I apologize that I couldn't help you anymore.
Where are the ballots? We don't know. They're AWOL.
It's being counted right.
All right, there's a wage being paid, there's overhead, there's insurance, there's electricity, there's air conditioning costs. How much money are they going to spend in a week to give a number that is totally invalid? It says nothing other than supports whatever they already want to be true.
I told the Attorney General letter, relayed our experience in recounting were the punch cards in a Tucson election. Simple. We said, hey, let's count this one precinct first. We named it precinct. We said, let's count 225. We don't think the results were accurate. Simple. Counted one precinct. Holy smoke. Then we got an order counting the whole city because the problem was observable. I suggested that this isn't complex. They could have opened that. We could have suggested, here's 2 or 3 precincts or one precinct along Grant Road. Find a box, find that precinct, match up the number, see how that count turns out. That'll tell you. If you're not satisfied with that, we can give you 2 or 3 precincts and do it, and then you know where you're going right off. No, they're doing it in the way that is least transparent
And most dog and pony show.
Yeah, most dog and pony.
Did you try to tally the entire election as one big number, or did you look at each precinct's worth of data and compare it to the original precinct by precinct statement of votes cast?
We could not tabulate the entire precinct by precinct because early voting boxes contain multiple precincts.
Right. Okay.
Otherwise, they were tabulated within their respective precincts.
Except the statement of votes cast breaks it out the same way the paper is. I don't know if you realize that. The statement of votes cast by the county breaks out the precinct vote on a precinct vote only basis. They don't try to merge the precinct votes by each mail-in voter with the precinct vote that comes in from the precinct voting machine that day. So you can actually track how many votes are in a particular precinct box with what was reported by Pima County. Was any attempt made to do that on a precinct by precinct basis?
Let me provide you with one example as to why that wouldn't work. Precinct 268, I believe it's Canyon View Elementary School. Attorney General Goddard referred to the situation that the janitor, for security purposes, night janitor locked the polling place ballots in a closet so they'd be safe for the next morning.
That's one example where you couldn't do it, but most of you could.
I can't pick and choose. I can't pick and choose.
Okay, sorry, I have one more question then. Was any attempt made to ensure the authenticity of the paper ballots you had in your possession? In other words, did you check to make sure that they were printed on an original Runbeck offset printer as opposed to a more modern laser printer, which both Pima and Maricopa counties have in their possession? Did you do any spot checks of either that technology or the age analysis of ink to make sure they were in the right ballpark age? Did you do any forensic checks of the ballots to make sure they were real period 2006 ballots?
No.
Recently, Blackbox reported that Ann Hilby made a commitment that your office would count the poll tapes. Was that done?
I'm sorry. She had no such authority.
If that's what he understood, then I apologize, and that was a misstatement or a miscommunication. And I'm happy to deal with that particular factor.
Well, your actual statement was, do we plan to examine those? Yes, we're examining all the evidence seized, including the poll tapes. That's a direct quote.
Then that was a misstatement on my part and a misunderstanding. I'm not an agent and I'm not an attorney in our office, so I do apologize that I made that misstatement.
So the poll tapes were never counted, is that right?
Why would we count a poll tape? I mean, I don't see how they're relevant to the hand count.
Because they would
I mean, the evidence and the final evidence of the election are the ballots themselves. And our effort was to examine the ballots as to the yes-no numbers and to report the results. The poll tapes are a different picture of the same process. So I would rather not use any intermediary. One of the reasons we did this was because there was suspicion about the electronic tabulation. And so we were trying to do from the ground an independent review of the ballots themselves. That has been said many times over, that's the bedrock, that's the fundamental resource that we have to deal with.
So you see the poll tapes would have no value?
I'm sorry?
The poll tapes would have no value in your mind in confirming or,
I don't see how. Is there any other press inquiry?